This is Right to Life Radio. And now, here's your host, John DeRoe.
It's the first Saturday of the month, and as we always do on the first Saturday, we have our stories from the Sidewalk with Linda Teliha from Right to Life Central California. Linda it's always wonderful to have Linda on to share with us about the on-the-ground reality of women who are facing abortion and considering abortion. It's kind of the on-the-ground practical effects of the bigger picture public policy things that we discuss and talk about, a week or so out after the presidential debate. And this is the kind of practical stuff that's happening. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you.
All right. So I think one of the things we've talked about on the show a bit, and some of the new research that's come out we've been using a lot in our educational materials, is that researchers from the Charlotte Lozier Institute and others have determined that approximately 70% of all abortions are against the preference of the woman having it. So it's either I don't want to have it, but I feel like I have to because of finances, family pressures, boyfriend pressure. And you had a pretty startling example of precisely that. So why don't you share with us about some of these abortions that are happening that are not happening in the fullness of choice, the great euphemism of the pro-abortion movement.
Well, whenever we start to talk about this, my head just starts spinning of all of the contacts I've had outside of the clinic. And I mean, I'm involved with all kinds of different parts of the community. And so I talk about what I do. And there's this idea that the things that are actually happening are not happening. And one of them is that people don't want to believe that surgical abortions are happening. And that people...
Which is bizarre, that it's like that you would... You know it's legal, it's a thing, but that, it really, really happens, and it really happens at this clinic that lists it as one of their clinic services. Like, they really do it there.
I mean, I have a hard time facing the reality of that because it just seems so hard to believe that someone could do that. But my experience was just this Wednesday, which we seem to think that Wednesdays are abortion day, and by obvious things that are happening, and one of those is what I experienced, and that was I saw a woman approaching Planned Parenthood, and I asked her if she wanted a flower, and she said yes, and I asked her what kind of service she was getting, and she said, "I'm having an abortion." Just like that.
Pretty unambiguous there. All right.
And I said, "Well, how far along are you?" I don't know how I came up with that.
Yeah, sure.
How far along are you? And she said, "Oh, I'm 3.5 months." And I...
Oh, wow. So this, so just maybe for some context. So my guess with Planned Parenthood and most abortion clinics now is that they're probably providing the abortion pill every day. But when you get to a pregnancy that's that far along into the second trimester, you can't do the abortion pill anymore. It has to be done through a surgical abortion. So this woman is clearly getting a second trimester a second trimester abortion.
I'm thinking she was probably underestimating how far along she was because she was visibly pregnant.
Yeah.
I mean, she was a small woman, and I knew she was pregnant.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's not one of those cases where it's borderline. Yeah. Well, and even, I mean, just for perspective for people, this is to do an abortion that late in pregnancy requires what's called a dilation and extraction, a dilation and evacuation abortion, which is a very violent, is almost so violent I don't even like. I don't even want to get into it. But yeah, so this is a surgical abortion procedure. So probably they have like maybe a few specified days where they can actually have a doctor or nurse practitioner or whatever be there physically present to perform them. So it probably just doesn't happen every single day.
No, but I don't think it does.
So we've kind of determined that it seems like Wednesdays recently have been their day.
So she said, I don't really want to, but I have to do this because I'm in an abusive relationship. And the more pregnant I become, the more abusive he becomes. That's a lot packed into that statement, and it takes a lot to think quickly on your feet to answer that.
So I'm in an abusive relationship. The more pregnant I get, the more abusive he becomes.
Right. And so I said, we can help you. We have all kinds of resources we can help you with. I even have a maternity home where you can go and you can live for free. And she was like, I'm late for my appointment. And I said, can you just do me one favor then? She said, of course. I said, can you pray for God's will as you walk in? And she said, I absolutely will. But can you pray for me?
Yeah.
I said, of course we will.
Yeah.
And so we just hoped.
Yeah.
I didn't stand there for 4 hours and wait for her, so I don't know exactly what happened
after.
Because it takes a long time. Well, sometimes I'll roll up and to start my shift, and the same cars are there
the whole
when
time.
I leave 4 hours later.
Right.
And they're waiting. They'll tell us they're waiting for someone. So think about that. I mean, most people have had a simple surgery, like an actual
for real surgery.
A surgery that's not even elective, which abortion is. Let's make that clear.
Yeah.
And you don't wait that long. That's how invasive.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is.
and the preparation process for, especially we're talking about a second trimester abortion. I mean, the preparation process to dilate the woman sufficiently. I mean, any woman who's given birth knows that that's not always on a quick, easy, regular schedule, and to be artificially doing that with drugs that can be a very lengthy, painful, extremely difficult process.
To drive this home even further, I think that most people could understand this. At one point, we were talking to another mom. This is a different mom, and her partner was trying to talk her out of it. We were trying to talk her out of it. She was on the phone, and she was like, I can't leave. And I think we talked about this on another segment where she's like, I can't leave. And I said, why not? It's your body, your choice. You can leave.
Yeah.
And then a little bit later, she said, I can't. My water just broke. It never even occurred to me that you could be at an abortion center.
Yeah, and they're probably trying to induce
and your water
labor.
breaks.
Yeah. I think
in her second trimester, so it wasn't like it was a late term one. She was a second trimester, and her water broke.
Yeah. Well, the story of this, not because anyone was trying to get her water to break.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
It was part of the process.
It was part of the process. Oh, okay.
So that was
yes.
like part of the steps.
Yeah, and then at that point, it's
over.
There's almost like no turning back at that point. Yeah.
But anyway.
So I think the thing though that I want to focus in on is here's this obviously abusive situation. And she's flat out telling you.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's sort of, we can't, it's not like we have the means as, we're a random nonprofit organization standing on the side, not, we don't have it's not like we can stop her. It's not like we can detain her or anything like that.
But we have so many resources she could have gotten began to get out of that situation. And the irony is that Planned Parenthood talks about how they take care of women.
And how is and that's the thing. And it makes you, obviously we don't know exactly what the conversations were in that room. We're not
true.
We don't have the standing to say Planned Parenthood was, certainly breaking the law, or we don't have standing to say that.
No,
but
that's
the
not
idea,
what I'm saying.
But the idea, and I know you're not. I'm just trying to do an extra CYA, just lawyer brain over here. I always think of the worst case outcome. But the idea that abortion as the solution to this situation is insane. It is
abuse
insane.
On an abuse, really.
Yeah, it is trauma on top of trauma. And the idea that, well, then he'll stop being abusive towards me. I mean, is that which
I don't know.
Which your heart just breaks for this woman who maybe
I just gave her a pass.
Of it all. Yeah,
I got a place for you to live.
Yeah, and we have a good connection with this wonderful. It's a Catholic affiliated maternity home that's sort of in the North Valley, and they do wonderful, wonderful work helping out women in difficult situations, precisely like this. And you get out of town, get somewhere private and secluded and away from this man. And it just makes your heart break that and again, this is. It's not like her situation is so rare, is the other thing, I think.
Seen all kinds of variations of that.
Yeah. And from boyfriend pressuring
get in there and get this done,
to outright, in this situation, outright abusive.
Yeah.
So
on that same day, I saw something that was also ironic. I saw a couple exiting Planned Parenthood, and it seemed pretty obvious that she had an abortion. Mm-hmm. And this is why.
Well, and you've developed a good enough, being out there as many hours as you have, you sort of understand what people are doing, and you can kind of tell what's going on.
She was sort of shuffling out, and she was bent over a little and downtrodden, and her partner had his hand on her back and was kind of walking her to her car. They happened to parked on the street, and I just watched them, and he seemed so caring, and even to the point where he comes around, or he walked her around to the passenger side and opened the door for her. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, what have we done?
This is totally
how is this
complete backwards? Well, it's making me think of
that's chivalrous.
Well, it's making me think of, the 5 times my wife's given birth, and when she's going to the car as we're leaving the hospital, and I walk around and I open the door for her, I help her get in, she's kind of shuffling along, she's not feeling so hot, and just what a sort of twisted inversion of that.
Consider this.
Yeah.
He also opened the door to the abortion center.
Right.
For her to abort their
baby.
child, his child, her child.
Yeah.
And we know what our statistics say. Once you have an abortion, higher risk of suicide, anxiety, depression, alcoholism, drug addiction, infertility, cancer. So he opened the door to aborting the child and opened the door to
all of those
higher statistics for all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and
way to go.
It's this unbelievable sort of way in which, this has been presented to people as compassion. We'll be back with more right after this break. This is Right to Life Radio. Yeah, well, hopefully with a better story. This is Right to Life Radio on Power Talk. We're back with Right to Life Radio, and we're here with Linda Teliha with our Stories from the Sidewalk segment. Linda's out at our Outreach Center building right next to the Planned Parenthood. And we had a couple of bad stories for the first segment, so we'll end on a bit of a more positive note. That you did have one person who was going in thinking about abortion and had a good conversation with her, and she sort of said she wasn't going to do it. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
We definitely have great things that happen.
Yeah.
We've had 24 people since last June choose life. Mm-hmm. And that's not just shake hands and see you later, good for you, you chose life. That means they actually came in the building and they said they were choosing life.
Had a good conversation. Yeah, and had a long conversation.
So, and I think that's a lot since, we're only out there, technically probably 8-10 hours. Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a
Anyway,
ton.
so last week we had a mom that I met out on the sidewalk, and she actually said, well, I'm going in. I'll see how far along I am. And
so she didn't have a sense of that yet.
No.
Oh,
well,
okay.
No, she was going to have an abortion. She's like,
right.
I'm just not in the right place. We're not ready. I'm going to have an abortion. I'll see how far along I am. And I'm done. I'm going to have an abortion. I'll just take the pill or something. Yeah. And so we had exchanged phone numbers. I can't remember how that actually happened. And so I don't even usually do this. Once that's done, I figure it's done. Mm-hmm. And so I went back to the building, and my shift was over. And so, actually, I was laying on the couch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just had this funny sense. And sure enough, she texted me. She just said, Linda, thank you so much for everything you said. Where's your building? I'd like to talk.
Oh, wow.
I didn't really expect it, but I just, I don't know. I had some other things to think about, I guess.
Yeah. So she came over.
She comes over, and we start talking, and she starts giving me all the reasons why she shouldn't have a baby, because they weren't ready. He wasn't done with school, and she was in a situation where she had another child, and she'd been married, but the father had died. And so she was afraid of losing her benefits. She had all these things going on, like, I'm Catholic, and I don't want to marry. The other guy wanted to marry her, and he wanted to keep the baby. Yeah. So I knew I had that going for the baby. And we just kept talking it through and just painting the picture. And then finally I was like, hey, would you mind talking to someone else who might just be able to give you an even different perspective? So I did a FaceTime with Sarah, our other employee, and Sarah got on and she talked to her. And then I also, a little while later, because this took 2.5 hours, I did another FaceTime with Monica. And Monica talked to her, and she talked about her experience of only ever being able to have one child. And because one of the things she kept saying was, we're not ready. We'll have our baby another time.
Yeah. And
Monica was driving home.
You don't know. You don't know what the future holds.
This might be your only opportunity to be with this. Because I asked her, do you love him? Yeah, I love him. But he's not done with school. He's living with his parents. I'm living on my own. Supposedly she'd lose her benefits. And we just talked about all the different things.
Well, and it's a thing where, like, with stuff with, like, benefits, losing, blah, 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 like, those are things you can work through. And I think people get scared.
Yes.
And just kind of get in on auto. We've talked about that before. How, like, I think a lot of people go into the abortion, they're just on auto, like, sort of moral autopilot. Like, I just have to get this done. I just have to get this done. I just have to get this done. And if you just have the opportunity to sit down and think about it,
well, yeah.
There are solutions to these problems.
The other thing we started talking about was, I just said, I kind of think you're having a boy. She says, oh, really? I kind of want to have a boy.
My dad would say that to every pregnant lady. It's going to be a boy. And then when they'd have a girl, he'd say, yeah, I told you it would be a girl. He just was like.
That's a dad for you?
Yeah, so he always had 100%.
I said that for sure.
He always had 100% batting average. Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, for sure. I think it's a boy. I went and I found this, like, little boy outfit. And then, anyway, the next day I texted her and I said, how'd it go? And she said, I said, what did you name the baby? And she says, oh, we named the baby.
Oh, wow. So the next day she was saying that.
So,
well, that's amazing. Yeah. Well, and that's the kind of very simple, that's sort of the very simple thing of
having time
and being able to just be there with someone. That's what this whole ministry is about. So thank you, Linda, for being on the show. And as always, every first Saturday of the month, we'll have our stories from the sidewalk. We'll be back with Jonathan Keller here on Right to Life Radio.
Our thanks to Linda from Right to Life Central California for our stories from the sidewalk. We are now going to transition. The debate was last week between President Trump and President Biden, and abortion was a big focus of it. Here to discuss it with me and some of the fallout from the debate, what it could mean for the abortion cause, is none other than California Family Council's own Mr. Jonathan Keller. How's it going, Mr. Jonathan?
Hey, it's good to be here, John. What a week.
So the debate, not a great time for Democrats, the last debate. Pretty much the nationwide consensus was that Biden got absolutely trounced during the debate. Not even so much that he got trounced, but that, I think Trump was competent and did a pretty darn good job for him. I think it was probably Trump's best debate.
Yes.
But I think Biden was just such a train wreck, and he was sort of exposed in a way that I think close observers have known and seen that Biden is very old, and he's pretty frail, and he's not whatever fastball Biden ever had. He does not have it anymore, and he was sort of mumbling and answering in non-responsive ways and saying things that didn't make sense, and it was really stark and really dramatically bad.
And so, John, a lot of times we hear the phrase incompetent thrown around.
Yes.
As, oh, yeah, man.
That guy's incompetent. Yeah.
If you go look at the dictionary definition of incompetent, it says not having or showing the necessary skills to do something successfully, as in a forgetful and utterly incompetent assistant. Or another one, an incompetent person like the tanker captain was a known incompetent. It's usually just kind of for like, man, this guy just doesn't know what the heck he's doing.
Yeah, but this might be a little worse than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's another term, and John...
Compos mentis.
Yes, I was going to say, following our love of using obscure Latin phrases and terms on the show.
There you go.
Non compos mentis, on the flip side, is a Latin legal phrase that translates to of unsound mind, or not sane or not in one's right mind. And I think that we may have moved, at least in the debate, from the incompetent Joe Biden
to non-compos mentis. Yes. It's not great. So, in spite of all that, we could talk ad nauseum about all of that.
Another
do
Latin
Democrat? Yeah, there you go. Do Democrats need to switch by now? Will they switch by now? I am not sure about all of that. I am not exactly a great political prognosticator. But the things I do want to mention is we need to talk about how abortion was discussed during the debate, and as much as the debate night was a good night for Republicans, I don't know that the debate was really all that great a night for pro-lifers.
Yes.
So I want to talk about how abortion was discussed. Now, I think one of the most significant thing that was discussed, and frankly, I was pleasantly surprised that it was brought up in a substantive way by the CNN moderators. And I don't think they were super pro-choice leading with the question. I think they just sort of asked it about, they discussed the Supreme Court case dealing with the abortion pill. And they asked President Biden whether he would do anything to restrict it, or President Trump, whether he would do anything to restrict it. And President Trump kind of gave, I think,
I'm glad
for me as
that
for pro-lifers, I think it was a pretty distressing answer.
Yes.
That Biden was glad that the Supreme Court had not touched the question of abortion pills, and he sort of signaled that he would not do anything to restrict the abortion pill if he were elected president.
Right.
And I just wanted in this segment give people the context of why that is bad. Now, it was a one-off sentence remark. Would the Trump administration do something to restrict some way of rolling back the abortion pill? Maybe not totally ban it, but do something to roll it back? Possibly. But let me just, we need to understand just how damaging the abortion pill is. I think very often, Jonathan, actually, a lot of abortion debates turn into these contests of like, well, if you adopt Democrat policies on social welfare spending or something, that's the real way to reduce the number of abortions.
Yes.
And I don't know necessarily. I think those kinds of arguments are difficult to make and sustain, and the causality is difficult to sustain.
We shouldn't be focusing so much on making abortion illegal. We should be focusing on making it unnecessary.
Yeah. And I remember when I was in college in 2008, there were a lot of like kids who had grown up in Republican households but wanted to rebel against their parents by voting for Barack Obama, like Catholic kids who were sort of somehow convincing themselves with those kinds of arguments.
They didn't want to rebel so much that their parents stopped paying their tuition, but just a
little bit. Yeah. So anyway, so Biden, so what I want to impress upon people is that we have these debates about, well, maybe do certain kinds of abortion restrictions, how much they actually lessen the number of abortions, how much do, social welfare policies, do they lessen the number of abortions? And a focus on the total number of abortions actually happening, I think is a useful thing to have.
Agreed.
Without question, the correlation is very tight between President Biden's 2021 deregulation of the abortion pill. And what happened in 2021? In 2021, the Biden administration said the abortion pill, which is not the morning after pill, the abortion pill is a drug to bring about basically an artificial miscarriage up to 10 weeks into a pregnancy through ingesting drugs, through ingesting pills. Two pills. The Biden administration allowed the abortion pill, mifepristone, to be prescribed without an in-person doctor visit so just via a telemedicine visit without an ultrasound to confirm pregnancy, gestational age, and allowed the abortion pill to be shipped to the patient through the mail or picked up at a major pharmacy, not distributed at the clinical site. Since then, in spite of the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the number of states that passed laws to outlaw abortion, the total number of abortions in America has jumped by approximately 100,000 per year.
Yes.
Okay? We have seen a massive, massive spike
And that is
in the number of abortions. We were at about 800,000 or so, a little over 800,000 per year before, and today we're bumping up towards 1 million.
And an important thing to say there, John, I think, is that is also in contradiction or in contrast to the fact, like we were saying, that Roe v. Wade has now been overturned. Multiple states have had all of these severe restrictions go into effect. So if anything, absent this effort from the Biden administration, we should have seen numbers go dramatically down.
Right.
But because we've seen them spike all the way
They
up,
spiked so basically
there is no other good explanation.
The increased number of abortions, it can't be explained by Texas restricting abortion.
Right.
I mean, if the numbers stayed even,
Right.
that might be an argument against Texas abortion law. Say, oh, well, just all the people in Texas who wanted abortions, they just went to New Mexico and got abortions. That's not what's happening. We're seeing a dramatic spike. And the only thing I think that relates to that is the abortion pill. And how do I know that? Also, the percentage of all abortions done via the abortion pill has spiked enormously. We're now at the point where it's about 63% of all abortions are done via the abortion pill. It's now far more than all surgical abortions, far more than first trimester surgical abortions. So for Trump to signal, look, we've given Trump a lot of crap about his unwillingness to support federal abortion limitations. And we've given him crap and a bunch of other Republicans crap, you and I, that all of a sudden these guys discover federalism. When the discussion is about nationwide legislation to restrict abortion, all of a sudden these guys are strict federalists. All of a sudden, no, the federal government can't do this. This is only a question for the states. Only a question for the states. Never mind when they want to pass laws to encourage IVF. All of a sudden, that's not a state
Dave
issue.
McCormick.
Yeah, that's not a state issue. All of a sudden, Ted Cruz has forgotten his federalism. But I will concede this. If Trump, let's say Trump gets elected, Trump has a majority in the Senate, Trump has a majority in the House, they still can't pass a nationwide abortion ban. They
Correct.
still can't pass a nationwide 15-week abortion ban. Why? Because undoubtedly, Republicans will not have 60 seats in the Senate.
Correct.
Democrats will be able to filibuster it.
And let's be honest, you wouldn't just need 60. You would need
Probably
62 because you wouldn't have
Yeah.
Susan Collins in Maine and Lisa Murkowski in Alaska.
And maybe Larry Hogan in Maryland if he gets elected.
Yep.
Yeah, who's kind of a pro-choice Republican running in Maryland.
Yeah. You'd need really 63 seats to even hope to get it past a filibuster.
Right. So I think from Trump's one of the things Trump has said about this that I think makes sense is why expend a ton of political capital on something that's going to give us a huge hit politically, and it's just not going to happen. There's just no way to get the votes to do it unless you abolish the filibuster rule in the Senate, which Republicans don't want to do.
And to be fair, John, this is, as much as I was nauseated by this argument during the primary, I thought it was a bad move because I didn't like it. This was essentially kind of the third way that Nikki Haley tried to take during the presidential campaign. She was like, well, look, I would sign pro-life protections, but let's be honest,
It's never
going to get to my desk. So let's move on and talk about ways we can. If you want to talk about, we need to focus on these social safety net things and trying to reduce abortions or provide resources because it's an acknowledgement of the political realities that we can't do this. That's one thing. I think it's okay to pragmatically say that. But
I'm going to be the most generous to Trump I can here.
Yes.
If Trump wants to take the argument, we're never going to pass a nationwide abortion ban, there's no point in trying to fight for a 15-week abortion ban when it's never going to pass, we'll never get the votes in the Senate to get it done. Okay, Mr. Trump, I'll concede that to you.
Yep.
Don't push for a nationwide abortion ban. But the stuff that is in your control, that you can change, and that could have a massive impact on the number of abortions happening in this country, that's the stuff I expect you to change. If you're going to ask for my vote as a pro-lifer, then you got to do the stuff that's within your power to control. And guess what's within the president's power? He appoints the head of the FDA. The head of the FDA can direct his regulators to do stuff with the FDA. You could have the head of the FDA,
HHS,
the head of HHS, the head of the FDA. And you could have the head of the FDA say, we are reversing our decision regarding the authorization of the abortion pill mifepristone because it was unlawfully, granted FDA approval in the year 2000, or its subsequent deregulations by Joe Biden in 2021, Donald Trump in 2019, allowing for generics, and Barack Obama in 2016. Those were unlawfully done. A Trump administration would have control over that.
Right.
And if Trump is signaling, which he is, frankly, he's signaling he doesn't want to do anything about it. If that's the way Trump does it, that's not good. I mean, that's a massive, massive problem.
Agree.
And I think pro-lifers are still not really familiar enough with the abortion pill and understanding what it is and understanding what it does and understanding how it has changed the game. You and I called this. Like not to pat ourselves on the back. You and I were saying this in
Check the tape.
We were
Actually,
saying
we should
this.
go back and find that clip.
We should. We should go back to our 2020 episodes. You and I were saying it repeatedly. If Joe Biden wins, he will allow the abortion pill to be shipped through the mail. He will get rid of the need for any in-person patient visit to get the abortion pill. He'll allow abortion pills to be prescribed via telemedicine, and it will change the entire landscape of abortion provision in this country, and we were 100% right. There are 100,000 more abortions happening per year today than were happening in 2019 and 2020.
Right.
So I guess that's the thing is now everything else Trump said with regards, is Trump going to appoint good judges? I hope so. It sounds like he still talks very positively about his Supreme Court picks and what they did, keeping some majority on the Supreme Court that is not favorable to Roe v. Wade is important. I think Democrats will try by hook or by crook to either pack the Supreme Court or appoint new Supreme Court justices who want to restore, the end result of Roe v. Wade. But, I gotta, we call it like we see it. This is not a Republican show. This is not a Democrat show. This is not a partisan show. We call it like we see it. And I can't look at Trump's comments about the abortion pill and not say it's really troubling. Now, maybe he gets into office and he's like, I'm not running for re-election. Let's just do this. Maybe he appoints great people to HHS. I have much more confidence about the personnel that Trump will pick, obviously, than anyone in the Biden administration.
I think the best that pro-lifers can really reasonably expect on the abortion issue is kind of a benign neglect. That Trump will get so busy with, all right, we're going to build the wall, and all right, we're going to do this and that he kind of is like, and you guys, whatever you guys want to do, fine, whatever.
And I sort of wonder, what is Biden going to do? What is Trump going to do with this, depending on who is, how is the vice presidential pick going to work out?
Right.
When we return, though, I want to talk a little bit about Joe Biden's undying allegiance to Roe v. Wade and how silly it is. Next on Right to Life Radio. We're back with Right to Life Radio. All right, Jonathan. President Biden kind of embarrassed himself several different ways in the last presidential debate. And I think one of the ways he embarrassed himself the most was through his undying allegiance to, and yet mischaracterization of, Roe v. Wade.
I support Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
The trimesters.
The trimesters. So for those who weren't watching, and by the way, we have a Right to Life social media thing where I had not actually watched the debate live. And so producer Colton had the great idea to post a social media video of me live reacting to the various abortion-related aspects of the debate, which I encourage you to go check out on our various Right to Life social media accounts. So one of the things Biden kept talking about was Roe v. Wade and its trimester system and how that's what he wants. He wants to bring Roe v. Wade back. But then he kind of misstated. First of all, he kept acting. Biden has done this multiple times. He keeps acting as though Roe v. Wade was this brilliant piece of legal reasoning and scholarship, including, implicitly through his embrace of the Roe v. Wade trimester system. Now, one, the Roe v. Wade trimester system has not been even in effect since 1992.
Right.
When Planned Parenthood versus Casey came about. So Planned Parenthood versus Casey was basically the Supreme Court reconsidering the abortion question. They gave kind of the same end result as Roe, legal abortion, but they kind of changed Roe's legal reasoning, and they got rid of this trimester-based system of abortion regulation that the Supreme Court basically imposed in Roe v. Wade. So basically the court in Roe said the first 3 trimesters you can't regulate abortion at all. The first 3 months rather, you can't regulate abortion at all. Second trimester, you can regulate abortion for the sake of a woman's health. And third trimester, you can ban abortion except for cases when the mother's health is threatened by the pregnancy. And by the way, every pregnancy threatens the mother's health.
John, to be fair, let's do this answer justice. Let me read you the exact quote from Biden's answer.
All right, let's go for it.
Quote, I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters, Biden said in response.
Well, a pregnancy has 3 trimesters, not Roe v. Wade.
Roe v. Wade had 3 trimesters.
There we go.
First time is between a woman and a doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. And the third time is between the doctor. It'd be between the woman and the state.
Yeah, so because he was trying to do the slogan of it's between a woman and her doctor, which is a classic pro-choice slogan. But then he kept trying to extend the slogan into the second and third trimesters of Roe's regulatory scheme, which it just didn't work, and it completely fell flat.
Which I just have to say, John, it's so great. Maybe my favorite headline I've seen of the many ones about how bad Joe Biden was from Newsweek, how Joe Biden defeated Joe Biden on abortion debate.
The abortion debate, exactly, yeah. So now Trump was sort of, I think, a little silly on this stuff. Every legal scholar agreed that Roe needed to go. And I'm like,
left, right, center.
It's like many legal scholars on the left agreed that Roe v. Wade's reasoning was
flawed,
not good.
Right.
But they did not want the end result changed at all, nor did they want the question kicked over to the states. Most legal scholars are huge left-wingers and did not want the states to make their own decisions about abortion. So I thought Trump was kind of massively overstating all that. Anyway, Joe Biden, the last man in America who thinks that the Roe v. Wade trimester system is a great bit of legal reasoning. That'll do it for Right to Life Radio. We will see you all next time on Power Talk.